When I was a police leader responsible for overseeing a frontline team, we relied largely on population-based estimates as the main driver of policing resources. Demand was high, it remains high, growing more and more complex each year. Then and now, I often found myself thinking about all the important information that was being left out of this equation.
When an officer arrives for her shift at 0600, she's not immediately in her patrol car ready to take calls. Put simply, the 12-hour blocks commonly used for benchmarking and budget development do not account for 12 hours of active policing. Breaking this down to common shift norms, or as you can see on the far left of the screen, we refer to them as deployment expenses. These include briefings, on-duty training, breaks, and meetings, and it becomes clear that the clock moves away from 12 hours. The true reflection of an officer's policing day may be as low as 9 or 10 hours. But even that estimate is only part of the story. What about response times, proactive policing, and what about the human side? When demand pushes the required headcount over the scheduled deployment line, overtime becomes essential.
Overwork and not allowing time for proper rest and family takes a real toll on officer well-being. Not to mention the budgetary implications of overtime. You may even encounter a lack of response to overtime requests, which produces a compounded problem for wellness. It also means we have less time to support community needs through proactive policing and engagement.
In a typical day, going from call to call, you might just be meeting your target response times, but that doesn't account for the follow-up time required for calls or the proactive work that we know is so important for community safety and is highly valued by the community and our membership. When there's no time to get everything done, that work shifts to the next day. Or you just have to stay late and do admin work and sacrifice work-life balance.
In this example, this agency has an authorized patrol strength of 100, and the agency has a priority 1 8-minute response time. When we look at this from the lens of a single watch, selecting a watch, based on our data from previous years, this watch has historically required an officer minimum of 14, referred to here as legacy officer minimum, demonstrated in the dotted red line. We add this line to demonstrate that historical data is only one data element and does not tell the whole story. A watch has an authorized strength of 25 officers or an authorized strength of 300 hours. If you recall, we also have those deployment expenses per officer we talked about, which reduces the 300 hours by approximately 50 hours. So far, so good. We have a watch strength of nearly 250 hours, and if you look to the bar on the far right, we only need about 177 hours. You can see by the two navy bars in the middle of the screen that the deployment watch strength and the deployable watch strength with OT are identical with 248 hours. A-Watch also has 5 supervisors. Let's add those in. You can see that when we do, our deployable watch strength bars remain aligned. However, the hours have decreased to 188. Still well below the response time target with 7.54 minutes. For this shift, we have 1 officer on unfilled medical leave, 1 on an out-of-town mandatory training course, and 1 on vacation. Our deployable watch strength drops to 158, and the deployable watch strength with OT has now increased to 168, noting the red OT requirement bar appearance, as well as the additional hours required to achieve the P1 response time target. This means that we require 19.3 additional hours, or as seen in the pop-out card, as 1.61 officers. Unfortunately, there is a bad bug floating around, and 2 officers on this watch have called in sick and anticipate this for their 4-day shift. This drops the deployable watch strength to 138. It needs to be at 168 to meet the targets and the bare minimum of 14 officers. This scenario shows that our deployment strength required to achieve just the P1 response time target is insufficient. We are not yet talking about proactive targets or other community requirements. You can see that even with an authorized strength of 300, when you factor in deployment expenses, supervision, leave, etc., the deployment strength required to meet your targets requires calling in an officer from another watch for overtime or underserving the public.
It's so important for police leaders today to be able to clearly demonstrate the real implication of staffing decisions when seeking budget approval from boards and councils. When the community expects specific response times or proactive policing targets, being able to clearly articulate the resourcing required to meet those targets is imperative.
We know that to achieve the Priority 1 response targets, our deployment strength required overtime. Now we need to factor in real-world community needs beyond those in immediate need of help. Many agencies now have formal and informal proactive policing targets, as well as planned and unplanned events and community commitments. Let's consider some of those in the model for A-Watch. On this shift, a commitment of 20 hours of community support was prioritized for Victims of Crime Week. Outside of this, City Council has informally requested a more visible presence in the downtown area in response to increased visible drug use. 30% of time per shift was agreed upon. AWatch now has a requirement for 195 deployable strength hours to achieve its minimum commitments, or 16.2 officers. More OT is required, or decisions to not achieve the public commitments must be made.
This methodology can show the real resourcing required to meet your policing needs on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. The ability to produce reports that clearly show the number of officers required and the associated budget is key. We can generate outputs you can take directly to your board or local government that accurately reflects the community need. It accounts for all of an officer's time using your data, reflecting the actual needs of the police agency, allowing you to support better resourcing and a healthier workforce.